all that good stuff. Full body stretch out. Um, Even though I didn't prep you, I want you to grab your chair. We're going to start with the chair, and we're going to just get back to some of the basics today. As since sharing with you that I have been doing some of my video downloads and kind of editing, um, to go back to some of the videos that have been in the past, it surprises me how long, right? So there are a couple of things that we're going to do today that we haven't done for a while, and this is not one of them, but this is just a segue into it. Okay, so just some nice gentle side body limbering. And whether you're on your ball, because you absolutely could do this on your ball, or whatever you're seated on, I want you to not bend to the side with the intention of trying to go as far as you can. I want you to pull your body back against that imaginary wall that we reference all the time, including your chin tuck, right? And that will help you not take a forward angle to this lean. So for me, I'm using the chair legs and I'm just letting my hand glide down the leg, belly to spine, even though it might seem odd to hold your navel to the spine in this position. Do give yourself some protection. Right? And if your parts are like doing little snap, crackle, pops, as long as there's not pain, it's okay. A couple more. If you can inhale on the up and exhale to the side. So I do realize that my tempo at times might be too fast for you. Here's how you would know that. If if when you're going side to side, if you feel like spatially um like your body is kind of spinning even though you're seated, then you need to take and I've just slowed down. You need to go even slower to allow your body just to get its bearings, okay? So we all can't function on one size fits all, one speed is good for everybody, right? And now as you take it to this next side, I'm going to let you, we are now going to come a little forward because you're going to put your elbow on your leg, push down into the arm to create the space, right? So the elbow drives into the leg to create the space from your shoulder to your ear. And then just raise that top arm. Nothing new here. Bring the high arm down. My legs are opened at that little V angle, right? So arm creates the support so that you can push and hold your braced position while the rest of your body stretches. If your arms don't want to go into overhead reach, then shorten the range just by putting your fingers on your shoulder. That's worth repeating, right? So here we go. Now, bring the arm down. Use the arm to help press that knee open. And as a real quick little visual for you, see as you look down at your own foot, see if your foot is pulled back into too tight of an angle, right? Open that leg forward just a little bit. And now the arm presses into the leg. Again, you're creating this extension through the trunk. Let this dramatic head rotation take place. And then add the full length of the arm. Release it. Here you go. Check on the angle. There's a lot of checking in, and sometimes you've got one leg doing one thing and one doing the other, and we're very disconnected often from right to left side and from front to back. It is a most peculiar thing to me. Drive the knee open, create your rotation, slide into the stretch a little bit, and then press up and release. Relax. Bring the legs together. another side to side position. So if you're using a chair, mine's quite wide, but yet I can still get my hands to the underside. If you if you're on a ball, then obviously you're not going to have any handhold, but my chair creates a little position for my fingers to get hold, to grip, and start this traction. Okay. So, though it looks very similar to the first stretch, now the isolation is through the neck and across the top of the shoulders. And depending on how tight you are, maybe you even feel that through the front body. Okay. Please, what are we doing here with legs and knees, right? Feel your big toes anchor to the floor. You're pulling your belly in. You do not want to be in excessive S. You want to feel like you have a smidgen of your pelvic tilt, because the excessive S, though that's a great place for the spine to be able to get in and out of under control, we want to protect ourselves. So we've got this thing that I referenced in class last week, and it before that, even the kinetic chain, right? So the plumb line of from the top center of your head through the midline of your body down through like the pelvic region. You want all of your parts sandwiched into the midline. Okay. So now if what you're using is too wide and you can't actually get a grip, then we're going to hold to one side. So say you're working on something that you can't get a grip on, then you're going to get closer to one side of your sit position so that you can really find a way to get your hand under the ledge and hold. This could be done standing. Pull your belly in, pull back into your imaginary wall, and you're just allowing the weight of you to take and just create this long stretch, which should feel good. And where your head goes, if it feels good for you to gently draw your chin forward, you'll feel the stretch radiate to a slightly different zone. Maybe you get your chin slightly forward and then you go, oh, well, what would it feel like if I turn my head and I look off that shoulder over there? Maybe that's not where your stretch needs to be. Maybe you gently bring your head back and then you let the chin float up towards the ceiling. But we're on a diagonal line. We're trying to keep this line floating on a nice stretch. And then somewhere between those three positions, as long as you transition nice and slow, right? You could go chin towards the chest and then slowly rotate the head so that you're then looking over the shoulder. And then bring the head back to like the halfway point. This is going to be what we finish on because this is at least a 45-second hold. Let the head float back. And all the while, I'm going to tell you this now because when we go into the next arm, you may need to make an adjustment. As you bring your head out of the position and you start releasing the tension, right? Just by streamlining your body back up to center, go ahead and let the spine release, separate the legs. You're going to just do your little ragdoll roll down where you're in full C, the chin is released, you're rolling down, you're releasing your low back because even though you might not have felt like you were in excessive S, this should feel good to get out of S curve. But don't pick your head up, just listen. Now that we're here into a forward fold, open your eyes, right? You're going to use your arms on your thighs to start lifting your body back up to its right position. Keep coming up, right? Slide. I'm going to go ahead and slide and reset myself to the other side. There's like, if your body is giving you the sensation, across your lumbar. Sometimes you just have to do pelvic tilt and release. It's a sensation doesn't necessarily have to mean that what you did was wrong. It just is bringing your awareness to your low back. Like I feel my low back, but I don't feel like I hurt myself. I just feel like, oh, I'm like doing things that are recruiting muscles to be tensed and released. And you floating in and out of space here is kind of like you doing this to your body, going, it's okay for whatever that's worth, right? So anchor your hand. What if you don't have a space that lets you anchor your hand here? But maybe you could stand up and use a door frame or a doorknob, right? So often when we've been one on one, I've had you using a handlebar off of a machine, right? And so these movements do not have to be done seated. I like the seated version because you can really identify, is your belly in a forward tip and a forward push towards your thighs, or are you able to draw the ribs down and the hips up to protect yourself? Okay, so here we go. Now, what I didn't get out on the other arm, you absolutely can stretch yourself too intensely here, and it has nothing to do with your back. It has how much lean are you giving your body. So if what you feel feels like it's borderline strain, then you have to bring your body weight back to the midline a little bit. So you can let your head go as far as flexibility will let you go, but you can control the degree of stretch based on where your middle sits. So, ready? A little bit of the chin tuck, and then turn the head. Keep like tucking the chin if that feels good. Keep turning the head. And don't look at the screen, right? Because your head is rotated and now you're kind of looking off your shoulder. This I find to be a very telling position for the body because you should be able to look at that shoulder and see whether it's drawing forward or you're recruiting your stabilizers in your upper middle back and you're trying to gently slide the shoulders back to help with your alignment. And as soon as those shoulders find their retracted position, the stretch should increase. And now you're going to come out of the position slightly with the head so that you can swivel. It's called oscillate. You're going to rotate the chin up. And as the chin goes up, you might find that the body wants to, I call it post up into more of an S curve spine. That's okay. Just remember to pull your belly in. And now you're going to let the head release its position, gently tucking the chin, and then continue the rotation. Keep your eyes on that shoulder, and then see if you can like watch your own shoulder slide back while you hold the stretch. This is what I think is the most like amazing thing about our body is that you can think that you're in a certain place until you show yourself, oh, well, where I thought my shoulders were, they actually went a little bit further back, right? So now you're going to oscillate. When I do the head rotation in the down and I'm looking off that shoulder in the down position, I feel the stretch radiate all the way up into my temples, not in this position, but in the down. So let's do it one more time. You're easing the head into the rotation, right? Remember, okay, so now gravity is hard at work, right? We've got our body listing to the side, and this is when you might start feeling like you're getting too much stretch. So use your control of you to offload some of the stretch in the arm, right? So that you can comfortably do the head rotation. You could go so far as to just let your fingers stop gripping the chair, and that might be where you need to be if everything is really getting what feels like fatigued. So you're looking at your shoulder, your belly is slightly pulled in, right? You're going to watch your shoulders kind of slide back. And it's when the shoulders slide back that the stretch might come all the way up the side of the neck, through the jaw, up into the ear, not in a bad way, and up towards the eye socket. All right, ease out of it. The head comes up. Ooh. So you just took yourself to extreme ends of neck flexibility, right? Spread the legs, let the neck relax. You're going to draw your chin, look at your floor, keep your eyes open. Intentionally, before you float forward, let your middle body rock back so we get into C curve, and then the natural progression will be forward roll. You do not have to go hands to floor. Maybe you just put hands on your, or forearms, elbows on your thighs. If everything's feeling good, let the hands release and just see if you can roll forward without getting dizzy. Don't roll up unassisted. The assist happens when you put forearms, elbows on thighs, and then your strong arms press you away from the floor. So I was just stretching this side, okay? And now I'm going to tackle, I want to just keep alternating back and forth between right side neck, right side body, left side body. So now this is a movement that I've given all of us that have worked one-on-one on a ball. We've all done this one. We've done it on the chair too. It's just been a long time. Remember, I prefaced the class by saying there are things that have been kind of off the radar that I want to get back to. So you can do this off a ball. It just is a lot harder. You're going to situate yourself on the side of your chair and maybe start with your legs together so that you can get your upper body braced. Okay. The awkwardness of this is, how do you get your hips to be in a stretch where you feel like this top leg is kind of able to pull back but just hang, right? And then if you're able, so I've got one hand that's on the floor and the other arm can stretch. But if that doesn't feel comfortable for your hips, right, then you just have to keep making your adjustment. This is the thing. Maybe this bottom leg has to come forward enough so that you're not on a hot spot on the hip. I don't know. If your head and neck right here, it feels like your neck is straining, then you're going to take your top arm and you're just going to wrap it around your head, and then your neck will be supported. And at some point, see if you can take your upper body and rotate your head gaze and your up elbow towards the ceiling. So these beginning stretches, they're like traction. Okay. So even though we don't have our top leg, someone pulling it and someone pulling that top elbow to get the two halves apart from each other, you should feel this stretch line all across the abdomen, the top of the hip. Something maybe a little odd is kicking up in your back, but it should just feel odd, not painful. And if it does feel painful, then you're going to take this top leg and you're going to bring it forward, right? So the more the top leg is forward, the stretch diminishes. When you open that leg and you just pull it back, right? These are extreme ends. We cannot get this version of a stretch flat on the floor. So we're using our prop to help get us that extra stretch line. And now, bottom arm has to get ready to do something, okay? Start taking your top leg, draw it forward to offload the tension, right? Remove your hand from your head. Are you strong enough to push on the floor and your chair and just start helping yourself up? come up slow, because this is this whole thing where when your head is below the heart, which it was, and then you bring yourself back up, if you come up too quickly, you may get that sensation like the world is spinning on you, right? Come back to center. Before we switch to the other side, we're going to kind of just reestablish this good feeling with our body. We're going to get into a whole different stretch. I'm switching sides and going to the piriformis stretch now. Okay. All right. Because remember, I said we're going right side, left side, right side, left side. It doesn't have to be the same stretch from side to side. So we just did right side body line or whatever side you were on. I now want you to be stretching the opposite leg. What's the down foot doing? Is it all angled? Is it not only angled but pulled back really tight? Try to um we don't have to imagine, it's what we know. Your support leg, right? The bottom leg is your foundation. So that leg needs to have a nice clean angle. So from the knee to the ankle should be like a column. If this stretching leg doesn't want to be floated down into the 90, don't worry about it. Relax your back a little bit, pull it to you, and then you're just doing a modified, it's like a modified pretzel stretch, actually. Okay. So you decide. Maybe neither stretch leaves you with a negative sensation. And so you're like, I like the feeling because it's slightly different. Maybe you just want to do like I'm going to do, and I'm going to alternate between slight curve. So I'm in slight S with my knee pulled, excuse me, slight C with my knee pulled up, and then flattened out to S with a forward drive. Wow, two very different stretches. Stretching the same area, but in a different way. Ready? Do one more. Finish on this one. And now, what your body experienced when you were on your chair doing that massive side stretch, it's like this release, the slate has been wiped clean, and now we can go and do the other side. Okay, so here we go. Slide into it. What's the worst? What's the worst is that you come out of it going, yeah, I just couldn't get myself comfortable on that one. And then you find another stretch to do, right? So the bottom leg position can dictate a lot about your uncomfortableness. For me, I'm going to pull this leg up a little bit more. Okay. Now, we don't all have the same width of chair, so I realize I might have a little bit more surface area than what you have, but what I am trying to do is I'm getting my lat on the front edge of the chair because that kind of is a leverager. My head is heavy. I feel like my head is heavy and that my neck is kind of working to hold itself, so I'm going to use my hand. Just grabbing my head and taking my head back alleviates all of the neck sensation. If you're uncertain about where your top leg should be, move it forward and then slowly pull it back, and you'll figure out where you're okay at. Okay. My bottom arm is touching the floor, but I'm not having to use it as a brace. If your bottom arm is really loaded and you're like scared about this stretch, then pull your top leg forward, reset yourself so that less of you is hanging off, just to help so that you don't feel like you're kind of in no man's land. Remember, if you can let this top leg find its pulled back position and then take your head and shoulders, pull your chin away from your chest, rotate your body so that you're kind of looking up, you'll figure out your spot. So a sweet spot is the sweet spot isn't like, oh, it's more like, okay, my body's okay here and it's intense, but I'm okay, right? A few more seconds. You can't really hold your abs in. We're not trying to contract anything right now. If you were going to have one area of contraction, you would be trying to squeeze the butt cheek on the top leg. That would kind of just stabilize the hip line, but we're ready to come out of it. So, what are we going to do? Let your top leg come forward. Pull your chin towards your chest a little bit. Start feeling your body get into C curve, hand to chair, hand to floor. Keep rolling forward because that will help you. Here's your slow motion, and maybe I'm moving too slow. Maybe you've already popped yourself up. I just want to go, okay, like that was massive, right? I don't have any pain, but like you, I haven't done that stretch for a while. So I'm giving myself time to adjust. Where are we going? So you just, whatever side of your body you just stretched, I want you to pick the other leg. And we're going into the two parts, the figure four and the pulled in. If the figure four does not suit you, then don't worry about floating in and out of both positions. Just keep holding it here. And if you are going to stay with this one, then as you get here, your start position would be C curve with the intention of pulling up into more S. Okay, so I'm going to float, check out the bottom leg. This is where those mirrors come in handy, right? And if without mirrors, we have to go, okay, ankle under the knee. The foot is coming straight down from the knee. You don't want the foot rotated and we don't want the leg collapsing and sliding. The body will seek the path of least resistance. Least resistance is generally not the right place for the parts, and it will have the whole rest of the day to prove that to you. So for right now, the next 60 to 90 seconds, I want you to feel like your foot, your foundation is pushing down into the floor. Because as soon as you push down into the floor, it creates like this bracing system, right? Pull the knee up, go to C curve, right? Push down into the floor. And from your C curve, see if you can get a better S. Stay here if you're gonna. If you're not, make sure this knee isn't sliding. See, this is what I often see is like these the angles that aren't popping. They're not crisp. So if you're able to get this tighter line, what will happen is the outside of your foundation leg will need to be pulled apart, right? Because the knee may want to just collapse to the inside. But as soon as it does that, it causes the hips to swivel. So phase one, phase two, you can stay in C curve or you could try to do more, pull into S. When you pull into S, what is this shoulder doing that's holding that leg? Enlist the depressors. Do one more, right? Float into it. Maybe now the knee is going, oh, okay, that's not so bad. Can you pull your foot closer to your hip line? Some of you don't have any restrictions with this movement, and that's a good thing. So this represents external hip rotation. Okay, and now pull in. This is a little bit of internal hip rotation. Few more seconds. Keep sitting up, shoulders out of the ears. If you're leaning back and you're really heavy on the back part of your tailbone, drive yourself forward and pull up. Oof, right? Release, relax, unfold, right? You're done with your chair. Get up. We're going to move around our space a little bit. I want you to grab a drink of water, even though you've not done anything strenuous. The body needs it. And before we go down to the floor, we're going to do a little bit of that wrist, right? Wrist. We're going to do wrist and forearm. So I didn't quite get my vinegar water consumed prior to class. So Marlene, here's to you. I don't know if you all do the Bragg's apple cider vinegar, but I thought, because I think Jen and I have spoken about this, maybe it was Peggy, even if there's even if it comes to be revealed that there's no benefit to drinking apple cider vinegar, I figured it hasn't hurt me, right? So I've been doing this for decades. And I feel like I'm internally preserving myself. Ready? Take your hands. I just want you to float your fingertips in towards the side of your body. Press in, press in. Oof. Now, as soon as you press in, what do the fingers do? Do they kind of draw into each other? Because I just caught mine doing that. So now that the fingers are pressed in, or the backs of the hands are pressed in, you decide how close you're going to get them, because that changes the stretch. And can you spread your fingers, right? Which may give you some sensation through the hand. Okay, that wouldn't be a bad thing. So spreading the fingers, drawing the shoulders down, your body is your brace. So the amount of pressure that you drive your wrists into your own frame, that's on you. Okay. Shoulders down. Just want you to walk around your space a little bit so you're not staring at me. If you happen to have a mirror handy, walk yourself right up into your mirror, and you're going to stand there and you're going to evaluate yourself. You're going to look at your shoulders, right? And you're going to try to slide them down. And then I want you to feel what's happening through your low back. Okay. So now I've turned myself to the side and I'm intentionally showing that the space around my low back looks like it's collapsed in, and that means my front body, right? My chest is pushing forward. I'm in excessive S because my buns aren't active. So pull your derriere through. That's a good start point. Shoulders down, legs straight, derriere. You should feel like your butt and cheeks are a little tucked up under you, right? Keep pushing, keep spreading the fingers, right? We're going to get a solid minute here, and we are so close to it. For so many, this is a very uncomfortable stretch. Now that you have your shoulders depressed and your buns tucked, I'm going to turn my back to you. Okay, so shoulders depressed, buns tucked. Can you then glide the shoulders back into retraction? Oof. Ready? Release the hands. Ah, and they may feel like they're stuck. Go circles. Ooh, Nelly. I hope that it's not just me that had that sensation. Work them around the other way. Maybe you got snap, crackle, pops. You're just trying to get them going again, okay? Get the circulation back to it. There we go. Ready? Extend one arm, push, and then float the fingertips down. In order to get your best and most comfortable angle, let the shoulders come down. And this might be the hard thing to do, is to actually get your arm straight. So grab it, fingers with the other hand. Okay. At times, we've used our chair where we've pressed the hand into the chair. You could go back to your chair, Or you could just keep holding your fingers if that's enough stretch, or you could walk yourself right up to a wall, anything. I'm just going to use this little, whatever that's called, spindle, okay? And when I put my hand on the spindle, I don't need my other hand anymore, okay? So all we're trying to do, and I'm going to come back to the camera in a moment, all you're trying to do is square yourself up to, if you're using your chair, square it up to your chair. If you're using a wall, all of your hand is fingers open, right? Spread the thumb away from the pinky, glide the shoulders down, tuck the buns, exactly what we did on the first one, and then slightly retract the shoulders without bending the arm. Okay. If your hand is way up here, that's okay, so long as your shoulder is pulling down, right? So you dictate the angle of your stretch based on what all of the rest of the parts are able to do, and then relax it. And now circle it around. Okay, arm number 2, and then we're going to the floor. Press it away. If you used the chair for stretch number 1, right, then maybe go to the wall and see what the difference is, right? Okay. The great thing about the chair or the wall is it allows you to address what the thumb is doing. So often with arthritis, the thumb kind of gets pinched in towards the index finger, and really all of this space here, which is odd, right? We're trying to separate. And so being at the wall or on a chair will give you the ability to try to flatten that palm flat to an object versus letting it pull in. It's harder to adjust the thumb in this handhold position than it is to be on a wall or a chair. Okay, so here we go. Square yourself up to whatever you're using, shoulder blades down, a little tucking of the derriere, pull the belly in, make sure that you reset shoulder down, right? Buns and abs, press the wrist towards the wall. If you're on the wall or the chair, then you essentially don't need the second arm. The wall or your object is doing the job, right, of what my fingers are doing in this standing position. All right, shoulder down, buns tucked. Now we got shoulders down, buns tucked. Glide the shoulder blades back a little bit. And here's where you get to feel it's noticeable, or I should say, it's almost only noticeable that your head is sitting forward once you draw your shoulder blades back, right? So if you push down, you don't really think about your neck. But when you glide your shoulder blades back, you can kind of, it gives you this sensation of, gosh, my head really is sitting too far forward. So do the chin draw. And then that might also help you pull your hip line into the right spot too. And that is a wrap on that one. Give me some circles. Get yourself positioned with your mat. We're using mat. Might as well grab your stretch out strap. Maybe your towel. You might want a towel, right? The towel might be that little cushion for your head that you need. And as you're coming down, I'll tell you about pickleball on Saturday. So 2 hours of pickleball, not 2 continuous hours, but more play time than, if being there for 2 hours, probably I know I got at least an hour worth of play, and not all of it super hard, but some of it was quite aggressive, and it was so hot that it literally took my body almost 3 hours to recover, where I didn't feel the heat, you know? So And then I spent an hour. So in that process of the 3 hours of recovery, um, made rich breakfast, did a lot of cleaning, and then like it took me forever to just feel like my body was coming back to a comfortable place. But when I finally got to the comfortable place, I then foam rolled for an hour because um, I just knew my body needed it. And and then I woke up yesterday feeling, physically feeling good. Here we go. Can you do your little side stretch? We're going to do a couple of these, and then we're going to go into the QL stretch and the quadricep stretch. All right. If your back leg doesn't want to be bent, then just open it up and your stretch will just look a little bit different. You all know that I like the feeling of floating the leg into two different positions. So if your leg allows you and you feel like you can create a little rhythm here, there's no sense in keeping it just bent back or forward. Do them both, right? This encourages internal hip rotation, right? And then slight external hip rotation. Now, pick your position with this leg. I'm going to go back to the bent leg because we're going to slide elbow to floor and then diagonal reach the other arm. Oh, tell me that doesn't feel good. Lean into the elbow that's already on the floor because this helps get you back up, right? Remember the shift? This might seem like a lot of work here. Be okay with it. Lean into it. Stretch, even if your arms aren't going to like full extension, right? The elbow needs to come to the floor fairly close to the hip to protect and give you leverage. The other arm just gets to go into that nice gentle slide. Lean back into that elbow, pull yourself up, shift the leg if you can. And now that your body's figuring it out, maybe you can go a little bit longer reach. Do one more. Elbow close to the hip. Slide on that diagonal line. Pull yourself back, and we're going to stay in our propped position. So now we're going to stretch the QL on the bottom side. Just start allowing your alignment to happen. Zip and tuck. Flexed feet. If it's been a while since you've done this one, what I want you to try to do is not go for the extra level of stretch. I feel like most people are tight enough here that this basic setup of the stretch done properly will render a sensation along the waistline and the back top hip line. What you have to just keep reinforcing is your elbow, hip, knee, right? Is that all in a good clean track? And then now that it's tracking, can you take your derriere, specifically the butt cheek on the bottom? Can you squeeze that butt cheek so tight, zip up, anchor the ribs? Because you see, as soon as you anchor your ribs down, it sets those shoulders into their depressed position. That should be giving you a really good sensation. So you can stay there. If you're going to go higher, make sure that hand doesn't encroach too close to the hip, or you get here and your body has like jagged angles to it. We want flush. So this was something that I got to work on with Jen while we were away because she's like, there's just one thing that I feel like when we do this QL stretch, she's like, I just feel like there's something I'm not doing right. So I got her into this position, probably on the elbow first though, and I literally had my legs I was standing and I had one foot on one side of her and one foot on the other side of her, and I was trying to sandwich her, which for anybody that was watching this, it looks very odd, but it gave her this reference that the back body is pulling, driving forward, and the front body is pulling back. And where those two get into the proper kinetic chain is where the happy medium is for this stretch. But without your ability to squeeze your bun, if you're not doing that, then I can guarantee you that you're not doing the stretch properly. Come down on your elbow because that's extreme. Offset legs, let the bottom leg pull forward, massive bottom stretch. All of that hip band should have just felt like, like it was this tug of war, right? Like all of those, if you think about your muscles, if you have your stretch out strap, like this is very telling because you can see it's all of this fiber is interwoven. But you have to think about your muscles as fibrous, and they're all interwoven in a way to keep them nice and tight and structural, right? So we just we just pulled on that fiber. Release, relax. The key to your stretching is to know when to not go further and deeper. So long as you're feeling the gentle stretch, it doesn't have to be any more than that, right? Knees stacked, hips aligned, elbow in line, starting with the basics, shoulder depression, right? Feel the shoulders glide down and then slightly retract and then do your chin tuck so we get into that imaginary wall space and then feel yourself start trying to pinch your buns. Now that the buns are being pinched, draw the abs in. Voila, the basic stretch. Maybe you're not really tight on this side because we, from right to left side, we have very different sensations, right? But if this is your tight side, then all I want you to do is try to keep squeezing your buns and pushing that elbow into the floor. That's where you're going to stay. If you're like, yeah, Michelle, I'm pretty good with this one. So let's go the next step, right? Get the hand far enough away so that you can get into your shoulder depression. Look down your body, right? Imagine the walls in front and behind you, sandwiching you tighter and tighter. Ah. So when I come up on my hand, what happens is I just get to feel the stretch radiate up in towards the ribs. Okay. Maybe you've heard of these muscles called the intercostals. That's what I feel like I'm stretching. I feel it all. It's so intense. A few more seconds. Shoulders. Ease down onto the elbow. Offset the legs. Press. Okay. Quadricep stretch. Stay with me on this one. Okay. We've been trying to float back and forth, right side, left side, front body, back body. Okay. So now I just did my right QL and I'm going to set myself up for my left quad. You figure out what leg. It's just to make you think a little bit and just to keep alternating sides here. So foot strapped up, take a moment. Maybe when you finally get over here on your belly, you're like, I'm not ready to do any more stretches. Maybe you're just going to take a little chill and you're going to let the legs rock from side to side. We have time, right? So as you're getting yourself situated, I want you to lengthen your legs. Try to get the tops of the feet nice and connected to the floor. And then now that your foot is strapped up, start working that strap. Pull it. Ah. Okay. So when you pull the foot too far, the hips may pop up off the floor. And that's when you let a little bit of the strap out again and you pelvic tilt, reset those legs so they're tracking nice and close to each other. It's only with you maintaining your pelvic tilt that then you apply more tug power to your strap. And here is a very tricky thing. What if, as soon as you get into your pelvic tilt and now you're pulling on your strap more, you actually feel like you've got restriction in your knee? Okay. I, this is something that I think is so complex that um, because it's a fine restriction is a fine line. With restriction, i- it should feel a little uncomfortable. If you've got your heel like all the way pulled to your butt, kudos. Okay, good for you. Then that means that your quads are nice and loose. But if your heel is touching your hip because you're not contracting your bun and your hips are lifted off the floor, then what's going to happen is you're not going to feel your knee. You're going to feel like you're pinching your low back. So here's why it's really important to release the strap so that you can get your hip bone anchored to the floor and then start the pull. We know that arthritis, right, obviously causes some restriction, loss of motion, discomfort. And so the thing is for you to not overstretch yourself. But yet this is a tough one because I can reach my hand back and grab my foot, right? I absolutely feel my knee. But I also feel the quadricep getting just massive pull. So I don't feel like I'm doing anything unnecessary to my knee. I just feel it and release. I will not get that far on my other leg without a doubt. Ease yourself up. Other side. This is what we're finishing with, so take your time, right? Once you get your body floating forward, then maybe you just lay there for a moment. You can rock the hips from side to side. What if you bent your legs, separated them a little bit, even though one leg is got the strap on it, and you just did this? This seems like a really silly thing with the legs bent, but you see, I've separated my knees. This again, there's a rhythm to it, and this is encouraging internal and external hip rotation, right? That's so important. Our hips just lose that ability to have this flexibility and it restricts so many things. So now let's just settle ourselves, work yourself back to your straight legs, wiggle them together, lengthen them, press the tops of the feet flat, pelvic tilt. If you can't get into a pelvic tilt when you're laying here flat, then it's unrealistic to think that you're going to be able to execute a pelvic tilt when we're under load. So, before we start the stretch, I mean, if you're already there, fantastic. But if you release your buns, right, and then you squeeze them again, that's what I mean by pelvic tilt. So, release the buns. As soon as you release the buns, you kind of feel like your legs flop. Right. So now, as you're squeezing your buns, you should feel like everything is drawing into the middle. Okay, so now you've got buns tight and you're going to start pulling on that strap. the less you feel in your quadricep, the more I want to encourage you to pelvic tilt. I've mentioned this time and time again, is even when you think you're in pelvic tilt, because of how tight our hip flexors are, we actually have more ability to keep working the pelvic tilt. It's not so that we get a deeper stretch per se, it's that we're trying to create the very best alignment. Now, if you've got your strap, the legs are together tightly, you're in full pelvic tilt, and you can reach your hand back and grab your foot, wow, this is going much better than I thought. And I just live time, even though you guys didn't see me foam rolling. There is something that the reason why I foam roll for so long, especially after I play hard court sport, is for this very reason. Okay. So I really did not think I was going to be able to get my hand to my foot. And yet I am. I feel my quad massively, but I would not have been able to do this yesterday post game at all. That foam rolling really, really does work. You got hot spots in your body, see if there's some way to get that spot on the foam roller. And you just have to kind of keep working at it because release and relax. Um, because sometimes, and we're going to press ourselves up, in order to do foam rolling in certain parts of your body, so many other parts have recruiting, the enlisting the help of so many other parts takes place that it's like a workout for all the parts that aren't on the foam. And so I know why many people just that thing kind of collects dust. It just sits there. Can you go to crisscross legs? This is what we're going to finish with. What if your legs are crisscrossed? If you can, even if your legs are crisscrossed and your knees are way up here, be okay. But ideally, you'd have that pillow that you would tuck under your body just to help prop yourself up a little bit. Because this is another one of those positions that even if the knees don't go here freely, maybe it's the ankles that are catching you up. I'm going to show you real fast. I don't have a pillow, but I'm like, oh, I've got my foam roller right here, right? So the foam roller for me becomes this, this bolster. And if you happen, why are we so uncomfortable getting on the foam, right? So little contact of my body's on the floor. And so I'm a slightly precarious, but yet immediately, as soon as I lift my hips, I don't have to feel the fight in my back anymore. Gravity takes my legs. Maybe you're sitting on something and instead of your ankles crossed, they're just splayed like that, right? It's the parts of your body that fight movement, you take note of it and you just try to keep reinforcing movements that put you into the pattern that your body is resistant to get into. You just have to learn how to prop and assist to whatever degree allows for the movement to be executed. Now, take a deep breath. Release, relax. Job well done. Class, I always appreciate your attention and I hope you have a great day. I'm going to take